for a baby to be in the arms of mother. And he says he never enjoyed even the slightest or the single or the simplest joy he could ever enjoy in one human life. So these people, they have to undergo both pain and pleasure from masters. He would whip her to make her scream and whip her to make her hush. People for rights, to fight for their rights, to fight for their free lives. Hello, hi, namaste and welcome back to Vidhyaashram, the Temple of Excellence. I am Nandakishore, Faculty of English in Vidhyaashram, Mysuru. In my previous class, I was speaking about Frederick Douglass. I have already introduced you all to this chapter and I have also introduced you to Abraham Lincoln and Martin King Luther. I hope you have watched enough videos about Slave Eradication and Proclamation Act. Now let us see what else Frederick Douglass recorded in his autobiography. He writes about his mother. He writes about his relationship with his mother. My mother and I were separated when I was but an infant before I knew her as my mother. This is very important. He says he was separated from his mother as he was an infant. And why was that done? Before I knew her as my mother. He didn't even know who his mother was. It is a common custom. This is very important. Each and every word plays a vital role in this chapter. Each and every word is giving abundant information about slave system. Common custom in the part of Maryland from which I ran away. To part children from their mothers at a very early age. Why could it be done? Frequently, before the child has reached its 12th month, not even 1 year, its mother is taken from it and hired out on some farm a considerable distance off, and the child is placed under the care of a woman too old for field labor. Think about it. ಒಂದು ಮಗು 12 ತಿಂಗಳು ತುಂಬೋಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮುಂಚೆನೆ ತಾಯಿ ಮತ್ತು ಮಗುವನ್ನ ಬೇರ್ಪಡಿಸ್ತಾರೆ. They are separating both baby and the mother. And Frederick Douglass writes, it is a custom. It is a must. It is not by any rule or any force. It is a custom. There is a difference between a rule and a custom. Rule has to be imposed, but custom is followed voluntarily by both black and white. He writes, 12 ತಿಂಗಳು ತುಂಬೋಕಿನ್ನ ಮುಂಚೆನೆ ಒಂದು ಮಗುವನ್ನ ತನ್ನ ತಾಯಿಯಿಂದ ಬೇರ್ಪಡಿಸ್ತಾರೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಒಂದು ಕಸ್ಟಮ್, ಅದು ಒಂದು ಪದ್ಧತಿ. ಯಾಕೆ? Because white masters are afraid that they would develop inseparable bondage. You cannot separate the bondage if a mother and a baby get together. ಸೊ ಮಗುವಿಗೆ ತನಗೆ ತಾನು ಯಾರು ಅಂತ ಅರಿವಾಗೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮುಂಚೆ ತನಗೆ ತನ್ನ ತಾಯಿ ಯಾರು ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮುಂಚೆನೇ ಸಪರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವಾಟ್ ಡು ದೇ ಡೂ ವಿತ್ ದ ಮದರ್? ಮದರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಸೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಟು ಫಾರ್ ಆಫ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಅ ಲೇಬರರ್, ಆಸ್ ಅ ಸ್ಲೇವ್. ಆದರೆ ಮಗುವನ್ನ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ? ಮಗುವನ್ನ ದೇ ಹೈರ್ ವಿತ್ an old woman. An old. ಎಷ್ಟು old? How old? Who is too old for the field labor. ಹಣ್ಣು ಮುದುಕಿ, ಅವಳಿಗೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳನ್ನ ಪೂರೈಕೆ ಹಾರೈಕೆ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನ ಬಿಟ್ಟರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗದೇ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದವರಿಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಈ ಒಂದು ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. So the grannies, they used to take care of all the slave babies. And what about mothers? Mothers were employed or they were sent off to the far off fields to work as slaves. For what this separation is done, I do not know. He says, I do not know. But do you think he doesn't know? he knows. I do not know intentionally says. It is left to you. It is left to every reader. It is left to the perception of the reader. ನಿಮಗೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದು. ಆದರೆ ಅವನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ, I do not know unless, he writes, unless it be hinder the development of the child's affection toward its mother. Affection ಯಾವಾಗ ಬೆಳೆಯುತ್ತೆ? There will be a problem for the white master. ಆ ತವಕ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Inner feeling. That gut will always strongly tell you that you have to go and meet your mother one day. So being a child, being a son, ನೀವ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ? You have to go and meet your mother. So what do? You would risk your life. You would go a step ahead to kill even the master. There are a lot of complications for the white people there. Affection toward its mother and to blunt and destroy the natural affection, he writes. First he told, I do not know, but again he gives a brief description. He says, natural affection, inherited, inborn. My mother used to tell me, ತಾಯಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮಗು ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಾಗ ಮಗುವಿಗೆ ತನ್ನ ತಾಯಿಯ ಬೆವರು ಕೂಡ ಮಲ್ಲಿಗೆಯಂತೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮಲ್ಲಿಗೆಯ ಸುವಾಸನೆಯನ್ನು ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. That's how the baby recognizes its mother. If you have seen any kids, any toddlers, any babies, newborn babies, go and observe, sit next to the mother and the baby, observe how the child reacts to the mother. Just a simple touch from a mother can cure a disease of its baby. A baby has such a strong attraction. Baby is not aware about itself, who it is, but it has a strong feeling that it can recognize its mother. The strong bondage. Now you know why we give the special place for the women. We compare women to a lot of good things in the world. We never say fatherland, we say motherland. We never say father tongue, we say mother tongue. Have you heard of? That is the bondage. He says natural affection of the mother for the child. This is the inevitable result. He says that is the strong relation. In order to separate all these complications, mother and the child is bifurcated, separated. Does it end there? How long will they be separated? Ellivarge? Let us see that. I never saw my mother. Very beautiful and very strong, and the innate meaning you can ever get from this chapter. This is the picture for the reference. So this is how the black people were treated. I have just taken this picture as a reference. So you can see there is a kudgel or kajal. It is just nothing but a whip or a cow skin which usually hurts and makes a person bleed. So this is how the black person is tied. It could be a man or a woman or a child or a grandfather or a grandmother, whoever it might be, in simple black. And they were also beaten by black people at times, and also the masters, white. Now, what is the sort of a misery that he underwent? I never saw my mother. To know her as such more than 4 or 5 times in my life. To know her as such more than 4 or 5 times. That's all. I'm sure we being the kids, we share a special bondage either with our mother or our father. If we are women, we share our love, extra love with father most of the times, and also mother, because women, they share equal love with both father and mother. But I'm sure men or boys, they share extra love with mother, not to an extent with father for sure. Think about it. If you don't get to see your parents not more than 4 or 5 times, you know about yourself very much. ನಿಮಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ. ನೀವು ಯಾರು ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ತಂದೆ ತಾಯಿ ಯಾರು ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆದರೆ 4 ಅಥವಾ 5 ಬಾರಿಯ ಮೇಲೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ತಂದೆ ತಾಯಿಯನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ ಆ ಪೇನ್ ಹೇಗಿರುತ್ತೆ? Think about it. Get into the shoes of Frederick Douglass and look at the world he has seen. Feel the pain that he has undergone and think about it for a fraction of a second. He says not more than 4 or 5 times, and that too when? And each of these times was very short in duration. 4ರಿಂದ 5 ಬಾರಿ, 5 ಸಾರಿ ನೋಡಿರ್ಬೋದು ಅಷ್ಟೇ, ಆದರೆ 5 ಬಾರಿ ಅಥವಾ 6 ಬಾರಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಶಾರ್ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಡ್ಯೂರೇಷನ್. ಯಾವ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ? He says very short time duration and at night. This is very important. Why I'm saying it's very important? Remember Frederick Douglass' grandparents, Isaac and Betsy Bailey. Remember, Frederick Douglass' mother is Harriet Bailey. Isaac and Betsy Bailey are grandparents. They are dark complexion. But Harriet Bailey, Frederick Douglass' na taai, Harriet Bailey is even darker. And he says, out of all the time I met her, it was at night. I am not saying about, I'm not talking about color here. I am not differentiating black and white. This night plays a key role. The darker complexion, I told you, each and every word in this chapter will give you the intense meaning of what Frederick Douglass wants to convey to the reader. Darker iddu ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ಹೊತ್ತು ಕಾಣೋದೇ ಕಷ್ಟ. If a woman is too dark or darker complexion, if she is walking on the street during the daytime, it would be very difficult to identify. And he says, what would I feel or how would I look at my mother's face at the night? And she is darker. He is saying it. Think about it. How would he look at his mother? He might have just felt his mother's face structure, body, maybe her body aroma, scent, that's all. What else would he get to see? Do you think he would have just seen her mother's eyes and observed it? Mother's face, clear face, and seen it? We don't know. She was hired by a Mr. Stewart, very important. Who is she here? Mother, Harriet Bailey, 1 mark question, who lived about 12 miles, not kilometers, 12 miles from my home. She made her journeys to see me in the night, traveling the whole distance on foot after the performance of her day's work. ಅವಳು ನನ್ನನ್ನು ನೋಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಬರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ 12 miles she had to walk on barefoot. ಯಾವಾಗ? After finishing her day work. She was not given special permission. She was not given any extra permission. She was not exempted. ನನಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಮಗು ಇದ್ದಾನಪ್ಪ, ನನ್ನ ಮಗನನ್ನ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬರಬೇಕು, ಪರ್ಮಿಷನ್ ಕೊಡಿ ಅಂತ ಅವರ ಸ್ಲೇವ್ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ನ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ they would not get the permission. She had to finish everything and only then terms and conditions apply. Even then, what is it? She was a field hand and a whipping is the penalty of not being in the field at sunrise. ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನ ಮುಗಿಸಿ ನೈಟಲ್ಲಿ ಬರಬೇಕು. ನೈಟಲ್ಲಿ 12 miles ವಾಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದು she had to walk 12 miles. How many? 12 miles to see me, to look at me, and by sunrise the next morning she had to reach the slave place. Next day sunrise ಆಗೋಷ್ಟೊಳಗಡೆ she had to be in the field, slave field, or else what? ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ? Whipping. Simple. They would tie her up to a pole or a tree and start whipping. ಚಾವಟಿಕೋಲ್, ಬಡಗೋಲಲ್ಲಿ ಬಡಿತಾ ಇದ್ರು. Till when? Till they are satisfied. Unless a slave has a special permission from his or her master, very important again, unless, he writes, unless from his or her master to the contrary, Very important. To the contrary, a permission which they seldom get. Seldom, ತುಂಬಾ ಅಪರೂಪ, ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಸಾರಿ ನಿನಗೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ರೆ ನೀನು ಪುಣ್ಯವಂತ, ನೀನು ಪುಣ್ಯವಂತೆ. Seldom get, and one that gives to him, very important. One that gives, who is that one? The master. Who is that one? The master. That gives to him, that gives it the proud name of being a kind master. ಯಾರಾದರೂ, ಯಾವ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಆದರೂ ಒಂದು ವೇಳೆ ಯಾವುದಾದರೂ ಒಬ್ಬ ಸ್ಲೇವ್ ವುಮೆನ್ಗೆ ಪರ್ಮಿಷನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, he is considered a kind master. Think about it. And they seldom get, they never get at all. They seldom get, never. ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ರೆ ನೀನು ಪುಣ್ಯವಂತ. End of life. Now, how did Frederick Douglass treat or accept the condition or the situation or the scenario of his mother's death? Let us see. I do not recollect of ever seeing my mother by the light of day. As I told you, he never saw her in the daylight. She was with me in the night. ನಾನು ಮೊದಲೇ ಹೇಳಿದೆ 12 miles ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬರಬೇಕು. ಯಾವಾಗ ಕೆಲಸ ಮುಗಿಸಾದ ನಂತರ, after finishing our day work, she has to walk 12 miles and she has to reach back to the field before the sunrise. And if she is given a special permission, then the master would be considered the kind master ever. And he writes, I never saw her in the daylight. She was with me in the night. She would lie down with me. ತಾಯಿಯ ಮಗುವಿನ ಬಾಂಧವ್ಯ, and get me to sleep. He was awake. And what would she do? She would come to walk 12 miles on foot, come, sleep next to her son, put him to bed, make him sleep. She would lie down with me and get me to sleep. But long before I waked, she was gone. Very little communication ever took place between us. No communication at all. What would a mother speak? ಅಷ್ಟೂ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿ ಸುಸ್ತಾಗಿ 12 ಮೈಲ್ಸ್ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದು ತನ್ನ ಮಗನ ಹತ್ರ ಏನು ಮಾತಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ? What would she ever speak? And moreover, what would a son talk to his mother? What would he know? What did he know about his mother? Think about it. Very little communication ever took place between us. Death soon ended. What little, remember, this little is so much. He got to meet his mother only 4 or 5 times, and that too at night. And that too, he got up. Before he could see his mother, she was gone. And death took away what little he had. Imagine you're so hungry, and you just have handful of rice to eat. You have not eaten for 3 or 4 days. You have not eaten that handful of rice. You are holding it. And something goes wrong. You put it down, or some eagle or vulture or a dog, something comes and confiscates. What would you feel? 1,000 or even 10,000 times the pain what you feel while losing your handful of meal or rice. Imagine it. What little we could have while she lived, and with it, her hardships and sufferings ended. He says, we could have while she lived, and with it, it also ended. What else did it end? It also ended hardships and sufferings. Why? Which mother would ever expect not to see her son for a longer time? We being the children, we are happy. We expect everything from our parents. But when we become parents, we know the pain of being a father, being a mother, and trying to fulfilling the needs of our children. ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಗಾದೆಗಳಿದೆ. ಅದು ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ, ನೀನು ಅಪ್ಪ ಅಮ್ಮ ಆಗೋವರೆಗೆ, ನಿನ್ನ ತಂದೆ ಆಗೋವರೆಗೆ, ನಿನ್ನ ತಾಯಿ ಆಗೋವರೆಗೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ನೋವು ನಿನಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. We scold our parents for silly reasons. We demand. When our demands are not fulfilled, then we blame them. We compare our parents with other parents. See, His parents, my God, they're buying him a posh bike. What good thing did you do to your parents? You need not have to do anything good. Just be a good son and a good daughter. That's more than enough. That's what a parent expects. Here, we spoke about buying stuff, being good to our parents. Did you see any of such things in Frederick Douglass' life? No good, no bad, nothing. It is just like a feeling that you don't sense at all, but still it exists in your body. It is a pain that you cannot feel, that you cannot share, that you cannot enjoy, that you cannot leave, and you cannot die with it. It is a complete complicated feeling. And he says, with her death, all the sufferings, all the hardships, all the misery came to an end. And how did he accept it? She died when I was about 7 years old on one of my master's farms near Lee's mill. So Lee is also maybe one of the master. And he says he was just 7 years old when he lost his mother. I was not allowed. How did he treat or how did he accept his mother's death? I was not allowed to be present during her illness. Inna tande taige usharilla in irbardu. What would you do? You would give a tight punch or a tight slap on somebody who tells this to you right now. But think of those days, 1830s, 18th century, 19th century. Slaves were not allowed to go and meet their parents, mother. Illness at her death, not even death or burial. We perform this, right? When we bury or when we burn the body, we take the opportunity to see our beloved's face for the last time, because that is the last time you get to see them. But here, not even that. ಆ ಒಂದು ಆಪರ್ಚುನಿಟಿಯನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ. ಕೊಡಬಾರ್ದು. That is the custom. Remember that. She was gone long before I knew anything about it. 7 years. 7 ವರ್ಷದ ಹುಡುಗನಿಗೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಪ್ರಪಂಚನೇ ಗೊತ್ತು. ಬಟ್ ಅವತ್ತಿನ ದಿನಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ದಿನಾನು ಕೂಡ ಒಂದು ಇಡೀ ದಿನ 24 hour ಸೈಕಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ದಿನ ಕಳೆದಿಲ್ಲ. And he never knows anything about his mother. He says that. Never having enjoyed to any considerable extent her soothing presence. Such a beautiful moment for a baby to be in the arms of mother. And he says he never enjoyed even the slightest or the single or the simplest joy he could ever enjoy in one human life. To any considerable extent, her soothing presence, her tender and watchful care, I received the tidings of her death with much. This is very important. ಯಾವುದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ರಿಸೀವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿಲ್ಲ. He had no opportunity to receive all of this, but he only got to receive one feeling. I received the tidings of her death with much the same emotions I should have probably felt at the death of a stranger. Nobody can ever write a line this strong. He says, ಯಾರೋ ಒಬ್ಬ ದಾರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗ್ತಿರುವಾಗ ನೀವು ನೋಡ್ತೀರಾ, ದಾರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರೋ ಸತ್ತು ಬಿದ್ದಿದ್ದಾನೆ, ಅಯ್ಯೋ ಅಂತ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮರುಗುತ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು. We feel so sorry for a person who has met with an accident, who has died on spot, right? We will not cry. Yes, of course, we know we are human beings. If it is a small baby or a small child, few people are too emotional, we cry. Few people cannot see or look at the bloodshed, they collapse, they faint. But ತುಂಬಾ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಂಗ್ ಆಗಿ ಇರೋರು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ? ಓಕೆ, ಪಾಪ ಸತ್ತೋದ್ನ, can't help. Rest in peace, God bless him. And we move on. We will not stand there, we will not cry. Douglas says, I accepted my mother's death the same way you accept a stranger's death. Imagine it. I told you already in the previous slide, the same feeling, the pain, it is a pain. You cannot share, you cannot enjoy, you cannot live with, you cannot die with. It is such a horrible situation for a person. 7 years old boy, think about it. Called thus suddenly away, she left me without the slightest intimation of who my father was. What is this called? Savu, karkon hotoytu avಳು. The death has taken her away. And she left me all alone by myself to think and to wonder and to question myself who my father was. ನನ್ನ ತಂದೆ ಯಾರು ಅಂತ ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. The whisper that my master was my master may or may not be true. He says, ಅವಾಗಲೇ ಹೇಳ್ದ, may or may not be true. It could be true or may not be true. Remember, she used to walk 12 miles, got an opportunity to put her son to bed only 4 or 5 times, and even during those visits, he never got to get an answer for this question. Such a pathetic life. And true or false, it is of but little consequence of my purpose, whilst the fact remains in all its glaring odiousness that slaveholders have ordained and by law established. Remember, ordained, they were amended, they were ordered, they were compelled. ಯಾವುದೇ ಆನ್ಸರು ನಿಮಗೆ ಸಿಗಲ್ಲ. ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಹುಟ್ಟಿದ್ರಿ, ಹೇಗೆ ಹುಟ್ಟಿದ್ರಿ, ಯಾರು ಹುಟ್ಟಿಸಿದ್ರು, ನಿಮ್ಮ ತಂದೆ ಯಾರು, ನಿಮ್ಮ ತಾಯಿ ಯಾರು, at times nothing. It simply means zero. Even your life, ನೀನ್ ಯಾರು ಅಂತ ಕೂಡ ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಲ್ಲ. You keep questioning one day and they will behead you. A life of an animal has something meaningful to perform in its life. If it is alive, let's say horse or a donkey or a dog, it has a purpose in its life to fulfill, but not the slave, not the black person, not the black woman. No purpose. You are alive, you'll be alive till the day you last. You are dead, then nobody remembers you. Established, ordained, and by law established that the children of slave women shall in all cases follow the condition of their mothers. Law, rule, remember this. And this is done too obviously to administer to their lusts. Their own lusts. Whose lust? As I told you, white people, white masters. They want to look at a woman as a child producing machine. They will satisfy their lust. They want to see the woman as a punching bag. They will take the leash, they will take the cow skin, they will whip. They will put out all the anger on the woman. They can do whatever they want. They want to perform yen bekadru madbodu without the consent of black women. No word, no whisper, not even a breath. No, you can't even cry. You shed tear and they beat you more. That's how cruel the masters were. Their own lusts and make a gratification of their wicked desires profitable as well as pleasurable. Look at the word, the strong words used by Frederick Douglass. Profitable and pleasurable. For by this cunning arrangement, the slaveholder, in cases not a few, sustains to his slaves the double relation of master and father. Profitable and pleasurable. What is profitable? The more slave you have, the more income you can get. ನಿನ್ನ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ 10 ಜನ ಇರೋದು 20 ಜನ ಆದ್ರೆ ನಿನಗೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಡಬಲ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. You get more profit. You make more income. What is more pleasurable here? The more number of women that you have, the more pleasure you get. You get to enjoy women. Look at the consequences of having or being the slave master. I know of such cases, he says, I know of such cases, and it is worthy of remark that such slaves invariably suffer greater hardships and have more to contend with than others. So these people, they have to undergo both pain and pleasure from masters. We all are human beings. We need to have both pain and pleasure. Only then each of this pleasure and pain will have meaning in its life. We cannot only enjoy, we cannot only accept the pain. It should be balanced. And he says, hardships and have more content with than others. Others could be men, or others it could be women who cannot satisfy the masters, or it could be the women where masters are not interested in having a pleasure, lust. They are, in the first place, a constant offense to their mistress. Who is this mistress? Remember, white master is married, right? And white masters would also have physical relationship with black women. So white wife turns to be mistress. It is left to the perception. Or it could be mistress, could be the black woman itself. Mistress. Mistress, Mrs. is legally wed wife. Mistress is where a person holds illegal, illegitimate child and illegal or in simple physical relationship without having married. She is ever disposed to find fault with them. They can seldom do anything to please her. She is never better pleased than when she sees them under the lash. As I told you, mistress, white women. And this black women, they have to also please the white women. And white women would be better pleased when, yavaga, when he sees them under the lash. Master, Tanna master, black women ge ಹೊಡೆದಾಗ white women would feel very happy, especially when she suspects her husband of showing to his mulatto children. Mulatto is nothing but a black child from a white father. She suspects her husband of showing to his mulatto children favors which he withholds from his black slaves. So in simple, the white wives were so brutal. They used to provoke the white husbands, the masters, to beat the slave woman. The master is frequently compelled to sell this class of his slaves. Sell product. Have you heard of people being sold? Flesh trading. We call it flesh trading. They kidnap and they trade girls, women. It exists. It has got a long history. To sell this class of slaves, what sort of slaves? Usually where he produces a lot of kids and sell them, both women and kids, out of deference to the feelings of his white wife. Compel, force, sell them off. And cruel as the deed may strike any one of be, for a man to sell his own children to human fleshmongers. Think about it. If I am a white master, I have a black son, how would I make up my mind to sell my own offspring? Nobody can ever do it. But in America, think about this: white men trying to produce kids from the black women and trying to sell the mulatto black kids to the fleshmongers. They used to kill, they used to do whatever they want. It is often the dictate of humanity for him to do so. Dictate rights. Unless he does this, he must not only whip them himself, whip them himself, but must stand by and see one white son tie up his brother, beautifully composed. Now remember, one single white master, he has a son, white son from white wife, and he also has a black son from black wife. So what is happening here? The scene is such that this white son will tie up his brother because he is the father. He ties up, the white son will tie up the black brother, and this brother will beat his own black brother. Son tie up his brother of but few shades darker complexion, black and white, but only single father, few darker complexion than himself, and ply the gory of lash on his naked back. I showed you a picture, beating his own brother. And how the naked back, they would just tie up to the pole like this. You cannot move. There is no cloth on your back. And they would beat you. How long? Until you bleed. ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ಹೊಡೆದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದೇ ಕಟ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಹೊಡೆದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ? ಕಟ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಹೊಡೆಯೋದು. Beat on the same spot where there's a clot. What happens? Can you imagine it? Naked back, and if he lisp. We do it, right? We do that expression. Lisp, one word of disapproval. No, please, no. It is set down to his parental partiality and only makes a bad matter worse, both for himself and the slave whom he would protect and defend. No words to express. You need to read by yourself, and you need to think, you need to imagine about the pain and the agony they underwent. I have had two masters. My first master's name was Anthony. Remember, one mark question. First master, he is the first master. His name was Anthony. I did not remember his first name. He was generally called Captain Anthony. Remember this, very important. He plays a key role. Captain Anthony, a little which I presume he acquired by sailing a craft on the Chesapeake Bay. He was not considered a rich slaveholder. He owned 2 or 3 farms. ಅವನಿಗೆ 2 ಅಥವಾ 3 farms ಇತ್ತು, and about 30 slaves. How many? 30 slaves. His farms and slaves were under the care of an overseer. Don't get confused with this name and this name. Frederick had the first master. His name was Anthony. And the second person is Mr. Plummer. Who is he? This 3 farms and 30 slaves were under an overseer, under the care of overseer. The overseer's name was Plummer, Mr. Plummer. Anthony first master ಯಾರ್ದು? ಫ್ರೆಡ್ರಿಕ್ ಡೊಗ್ಲಸ್ದು. ಅವನಿಗೆ ಒಂದು 2-3 ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಇತ್ತು, 30 ಜನ ಸ್ಲೇವ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ರು. ಇದನ್ನ ಮೇಂಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದು ಮಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಪ್ಲಮ್ಮರ್. ಕೀಪ್ ದಿಸ್ ಇನ್ ಮೈಂಡ್. Mr. Plummer was a miserable drunkard, always boozing, miserable drunkard, and a profane swearer and a savage monster. Savage monster, not just a monster. Savage itself is like monster. So it is giving even inner meaning. Savage, cruel, the ultimate monster you can ever see and ever imagine in your life. He always went armed with a cow skin and a heavy cudgel. Cudgel is like, where it will have pieces of bones made together, put together with a chain, sort of a chain link. And cow skin. Cow skin, if you see Mexican boys or Mexican men, how they will have a whipped cow skin to herd the cows. So we got to see Plummer and Mr. Anthony. These characters, they play a key role in examination. 1 mark question. I have known him to cut him Mr. Plumber. I have known him to cut and slash the women's heads so horribly. Remember, it's just like, Frederick Douglass writes as if Mr. Plumber is a butcher, as if he cuts the chicken's head so easily. He pens down his feelings like that. Slash the women's heads so horribly that even master would be enraged. Who was the master? Mr. Anthony. Or it could be other master. Such a horrible condition, such a horrible character, such a horrible personality. Who had it? Mr. Plummer. And he says that even master would be enraged, not just shocked or amazed or happy to see a man cutting or beating or manhandling the woman's head. It was such a horrific situation, such a horrific scene. They would be enraged at his cruelty, the level of intensity, and would threaten to whip him if he did not mind himself. Mr. Plummer is an overseer. If Anthony comes and tells Mr. Plummer to be okay, to be, to be in control, not to harm, not to be so rude, not to be so mean to people, Mr. Plummer would threaten his master that he would whip him, he would break his knuckles or head or bones if he doesn't mind his job. Master, however, was not a humane slave holder. He was not. Not even Anthony. It required extraordinary barbarity on the part of an overseer to affect him. Barbarism. Cruel man. He was a cruel man hardened by a long life of slave holding. He would at times seem to take great pleasure in whipping a slave. Who is he? Mr. Plummer. Kududu sakagalla. He doesn't get joy. Having physical relationship, maybe, I don't know. But he would seek pleasure, great pleasure, not just normal, great pleasure. By doing what? Whipping. By making the woman bleed. I have often been awakened at the dawn of the day by the most heart-rending shrieks of an own aunt of mine, my own auntie, Nanna auntie, whom he used to tie up to a joist and whip upon her naked back till she was literally covered with blood. Literally. Look at the words. Literally covered with blood. No words, very important, no words, no tears, no prayers from his gory victim seemed to move his iron heart from its bloody purpose. ಎಷ್ಟು ಅತ್ರು, ಎಷ್ಟು ಕೂಗಿದ್ರು, ಎಷ್ಟು ಚೀರಾಡಿದ್ರು ಅವನ ಕಲ್ಲು ಮನಸ್ಸು ಕರಗ್ತಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. He never used to stop beating. The louder she screamed, the harder he whipped. The pleasure, psychopath. And where, this is very important, where the blood ran fastest, there he whipped longest. I don't have to express more. I don't have to explain more. Any simple child, any dumb child can feel this pain. Any idiotic child can understand this context. He would whip her to make her scream and whip her to make her hush. ಎಷ್ಟು ಜೋರಾಗಿ ಕಿರ್ಚ್ಕೋತೀಯ ನೋಡೋಣ, ಕಿರ್ಚು. ನಾನು ಹೊಡೆದಷ್ಟು ನೀನು ಜೋರಾಗಿ ಕಿರ್ಚಿದಷ್ಟು ನಾನು ಹೊಡಿತೀನಿ, ನಾನು ಹೊಡೆದಷ್ಟು ನೀನು ಜೋರಾಗಿ ಕಿರ್ಚ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. And not until overcome by fatigue would he cease to swing the blood-clotted cowskin. It was a most terrible spectacle. I am going crazy now. Even you should do. Any child, any boy with minimum common sense can feel this pain, can feel these emotions. And think how Frederick Douglass or how millions of people like Frederick Douglass might have felt this pain. And think about those people who were beaten, who have actually taken the beatings from those cruel, bloody masters. From my earliest recollection, I date the entertainment of a deep conviction that slavery would not always be able to hold me with this foul embrace. And in the darkest hours of my career in slavery, this living word of faith and spirit of hope, very important, faith and spirit of hope departed not from me but remained like ministering angels to cheer me through the gloom, darkness. He says, the hope, all this pain, all this glory, I have taken both pain and gain. Or the pain that losing his mother, losing his identity, losing his childhood and all his half of the life. And glorious, at least I know how to come out of this horrific situation, and to encourage and to educate the people for rights, to fight for their rights, to fight for their free lives. And he says, he is dedicating this to the gods who have, or the angels who have stood by his side during this dark era, dark age. This good spirit was from God. He is giving a credit, praise the Lord. He is giving the credit to the God for giving him so much of energy to fight against this barbarism. And to him I offer thanksgiving and praise. He says that it's not just I doesn't stand as me alone. I is a symbol of black people. And Frederick Douglass is a mirror which is standing against the slave trade and the barbarism which has come from generations after generations. He says, I would like to appreciate my Lord who has been throughout my ups and downs and giving me the hope to fight against this barbarism and cruelty. So that is it about Frederick Douglass, and I'm sure that it will reflect and has given you the complete propaganda about black trade and black terror. With this, I wind up this session. Let us meet in the next session. In my next session, I will be teaching you Two Gentlemen of Verona, written by A.J. Cronin. Until then, have a good day. Take care.